Hello fellow steepers and stitchers, and welcome. My name is Sarah. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Steeps and Stitches. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this video. I hope you're well. It is February 2021, it's the last day, and I hope you've had a good month. So today I'm going to be showing you some things that I have made and I'm currently in the process or about to start the process of mending. This has been something that's been on my mind recently because I have a little stack of things that need mending. These are a pair of socks that I made last year and they became my favourite pair of socks, and they still are one of my favourite pairs of socks. But I wore them lots and lots and lots. They are made out of Blacker Yarn's Jacob 4-ply, and this is their original Jacob 4-ply, not the current limited edition that they have available on their website, but I imagine pretty similar. And if you follow me on Instagram, these are the socks that have the ripping out video where I realised one foot had been made slightly smaller than the other, and rather than live with it, because I wanted comfy socks, I ripped out the toe and I knit a couple more rows and then I redid the toe. These are socks that I actually do have a left and a right for. Most of my socks don't have that, but one cuff has this little kind of nubbly bit in, which is just an anomaly of the spinning. And this is the left sock. The left sock is a little worn on the bottom. It's a little felted where kind of the pressure points of my feet are. But the left sock is intact. The right sock, however, on the heel, has a hole. And this to me says that my gait is slightly uneven. I put slightly more pressure on this right foot, and that would be about right. I have an old injury in one of my knees, which means that my gait is slightly off. And even though you couldn't really tell, I do put unequal pressure down when I walk. So I have a hole to fix, and I didn't pay close enough attention to my socks as this was wearing. I could have preempted this. I could have done some duplicate stitching. I could have popped a patch over before it became a hole and when it was just kind of worn. But I wasn't paying attention, and all of a sudden I put my foot down and went, feels a little chilly. Yes, that's because there's a hole. So I'm going to be using the original yarn to fix it. Everything's covered in my hair and the dog's hair as well. So this is the colour I have most of left. I don't have very much of the grey left because I use the grey for the cuffs, the heels and the toes. So I'm just going to be using this to patch over this little hole. And the technique I'm going to be using is the one that Anushka of a Crimson Stitchery podcast shows. I am going to pop a link down in the description box below, but I would highly recommend checking out that video. It's a little bit of an annoying spot because it's right on the curve of the heel. So it's right kind of, it's on the edge and it's curved. It's where the heel flap turns. So I'm going to have a little think about, I think I'm probably going to knit from the back of the heel and do the flap coming down. But there may be some jiggery pokery involved in how it gets stitched down at the side. This is one that I don't want to kind of create like a woven patch to kind of, I want an actual knitted patch on this, and I'm going to use my original yarn so that it's the same thickness as the yarn I used before. Just pulling hair and fur off my socks. Does anyone else have that? Got the springtime molt going on, so does the dog. There's just floof everywhere. So that's one pair of socks that I'm going to be darning or mending. The other pair of socks is this one. So these are my lovely boot socks that I made out of yarn from Hooligan Yarns. And as you can see, I've already done a little bit of repair work. So this is, I noticed these socks were starting to wear a little bit thin in places, and specifically more on one than the other. And I used a little bit of Blackie Yarns North Ronaldsay in Aran weight to just do a little bit of duplicate stitching where it was wearing thin, and that's worked really nicely on that heel. But it's now happening on the other heel as well. So you can just see where the stitches are just wearing that little bit thin. Now, I do have some of the North Ronaldsay yarn left, but I've decided I'm actually going to use this yarn. This is Sanders Skarn, which is a Norwegian brand of wool, and this is their 100% wool blend, their Peer Gynt blend. And I bought this when I was in Norway for a friend's wedding a few years back. It's a DK weight, and this is DK weight. I would use this yarn, but I can't find the remainder of my ball. It's gone missing in deep stash, and there was only a very, very small amount of it left. If you are not familiar with Hooligan Yarns, I highly recommend that you go and you look them up. Hooligan Yarns is a charity. Well, the yarns support the Manor Farm Charitable Trust. They take on rescued animals, so rescue farm animals. And one of the ways they help pay for that is that the sheep that they rescue obviously have to be sheared. It is incredibly cruel not to shear your sheep unless they are a naturally molting breed, in which case they don't need to be sheared. And they make yarn where you know who you are knitting. And this is Hattie yarn, which, so Hattie is one of their sheep. And this yarn is made entirely out of her wool. She is a crossbreed, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what the cross is. I think it's a Dorset Cross Llewellyn. I'm not sure. I should probably have looked that up. Bad me. But what I really like about this is the sheep's name is Hattie. My dog's name is Hattie. These are boot socks that I made myself for wearing inside my walking boots, which I wear when I walk my dog Hattie. So I made Hattie socks for walking Hattie. It is quite what some people would term rustic yarn. It's got a little wee prickle to it. I can wear it really, really nicely on my feet. It doesn't bother me at all, but I wouldn't want this around my neck. For me, I'm just a little bit too sensitive around my neck or my head. I could probably wear it as mittens. That wouldn't bother me. But I love these as boot socks. They are absolutely phenomenal. And I'd highly recommend that you check out Hooligan Yarns, because they have such an amazing range of animals on their farm, and their Instagram feed is just fantastic. But the yarns that they produce, they have Shetland and Gotland, Corriedale mixes. It's fantastic. And I do have a fair stash of Hooligan yarns, which I am currently working my way through on various products. But I love these socks. So I really want to make sure that I preempt these holes that are not yet holes. They are holes in the making. So I'm going to try and preempt them and stop them from occurring. For this, I'm going to use the duplicate stitch method rather than the kind of knit a patch method, simply because I feel that that works better for this instance. Whereas when there is an actual hole, I think the knitting a patch system works really nicely. So that's what I'm going to be up to. I do have a little wee darning mushroom. This was actually not originally a darning mushroom. This is made from wood from my grandparents' garden. There is a tree that grew in their garden that had to be chopped down many years ago. And my mum took some of the wood, took it to a friend who did wood turning, and had a whole series of little mushrooms and toadstools made. This is the smallest of them. She gifted me a whole little kind of family of them for using it outside in our garden. But this one I just smoothed off, rubbed some oil in, and it just makes the most perfect little darning mushroom. And it's so super special that this is from my grandparents' house, both of whom are no longer with us. So this is a nice little memory. For those of you who haven't used a darning mushroom before, it just helps you to tension your piece of material so that you can see kind of what you're doing. So you basically shove the darning mushroom down, and then you can hold like this and you can do your darning. So why am I talking about darning? Why aren't I talking about exciting things like what I've made and what I'm going to be casting on? Because this is something that I don't think people talk about enough. In our current society, everything is made to be kind of throwaway. If you think about it, there's a new phone comes out every 6 months. Your phone is out of date pretty much the minute that you buy it. And we don't really fix them. It's just one of those things, they stop functioning, so we get a new one. They're designed to be that way, which is the really awful thing. We live in a society here in the UK where you can pretty much go out and you can buy whatever you need whenever you need it. Something breaks, get a new one. That's just the way it works. But it wasn't always that way. And I grew up, so my mum was born just a couple of years after the end of the Second World War. She was born into rationing. My grandparents served in the Second World War, and they were born just after the end of the First World War. So again, they were born in a time of shortage, and they made do and they mended. My grandma was very, very good with a sewing machine and made a lot of her own clothes and a lot of my granddad's clothes and a lot of her children's clothes. My mum is also very good with a sewing machine and made a lot of her clothes and my dad's clothes, and some of mine when I was growing up. And they taught me that you mend things. And I've kind of it's been mulling around in my head just a little while as to what exactly that means. And it's a little more than make, do and mend for me personally. Yes, there is an element of, at times when we have to, we make do with what we've got. We mend what we've got. But for me right now, I am in a very privileged position that I don't have to make do. If I want to buy a new pair of socks, I can go buy a new pair of socks. I'm not making do with handmade socks. This for me is an intrinsic part of my being to make things, but also a little bit of a luxury to be able to make things. I'm not making do when I mend these. I am appreciating them. In a way, mending something that I've made, or mending something that someone else has made, mending something that I use on a daily basis that brings me joy, brings me comfort. That's not making do to me. To me, that's appreciation. I'm appreciating the object. I'm appreciating the job that it does for me. I'm appreciating the time and the effort and the thought that went into making it. In a way, mending is a little bit of a love letter. So, although it can feel a little bit like a chore sometimes, I would highly encourage you to think about what it is you're mending, why it is you're mending it, how it is you're mending it, and to take a little bit of pleasure in that. Write your items a love letter in yarn. This has been an incredibly short episode, but I hope you have enjoyed it. Please pop down into the comments below and let me know if there's anything that you've been mending recently or something that you have been particularly enjoying. Whether or not someone's made you something that you super love. Just pop down into the comments and say hi. It would be lovely to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.